Okay, peeps, welcome back. So here it is. The Bitcoin halving has happened. So let's get into it and why it matters. Let's get it. So the first thing I want to mention before we talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin halving and why this is so significant is I want to bring up one more time the channel memberships. So we changed the start time of our posting of our videos to 6 a.m. in the morning. Again, 30 minutes post market open. For you guys' convenience, so that way you can get ready for the market session if that's what you're looking at. But we've also made available to you channel memberships. So anytime you click on a video, when you see the join button, if you want to sign up for the channel memberships, you are more than welcome to. You just click on the join button. You'll see what the price is, which we think, in our opinion, in finance, especially with how much money we're all going to make, I would say is probably more than a fair price. And you can get early access to our videos whenever you need it. And that doesn't just include the 6 a.m. start time. Like, let's say you're up at 4 a.m., but it starts at 6 a.m. You can get it at 4 a.m. So that's just an example of what I'm talking about. So let's talk about the Bitcoin halving. So as you guys can see, it has happened. It's showing here that the next Bitcoin halving is in April of 2028. So that's, again, 4 years from now. Once again, the amount of Bitcoin mined per block has been reduced basically from 6.5 down to 3.125, and will decrease again in 4 years from 3.125 to 1.5625. So as of right now, the record shows that there is now officially 4 Bitcoin halvings in Bitcoin's history. Okay, so we had one in 2012, one in 2016, one in May of 2020, which was the last one before yesterday, and then yesterday's was April 2024. So why does this matter? Well, it's pretty simple. Laws of supply and demand. Okay, there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever. Okay, only 21 million. There's never going to be more than 21 million. So with that being said, the amount of Bitcoin that can be produced is capped. Again, if you take a look at something like gold or silver, does it have value? Yes, it does. And we do actually own some of that as well. But the value of the price of precious metals is based on whether there's less being mined out of the earth or more being mined out of the earth. Again, if there's less mined and there's less available to the public, but the demand is still high, then it becomes the value of it becomes worth more. But if there's an excess of supply and the supply, or I should say the demand is high or the demand is moderate to low, then obviously the higher the supply, the lower the demand, the relatively lower the price of that particular asset is going to be. With Bitcoin, we don't have that problem because there can never be any more Bitcoin mined. It's only ever going to be 21 million. It's only ever been 21 million since 2009, since this thing was brought into existence. So less and less Bitcoin come onto the market every 4 years as a result of that. And as you guys know, the price has gone from basically a penny or 10 cents all the way up to $70,000 per Bitcoin. So clearly the demand is there. So again, supply is going down, demand is going up. You got big, massive, mega companies and even countries right now trying to buy some. So you got the Hong Kong spot Bitcoin ETFs. I don't know if you guys have read about that, but if you haven't, go check it out. So apparently Hong Kong and some people within China are trying to get some spot Bitcoin ETFs approved. For those of you guys that don't know, the GDP of China is the second largest in the entire world, only second to the United States. So that's a lot of potential money that could flow into Bitcoin and altcoins. Just something to keep in mind. So they're trying to get their spot Bitcoin and Ether ETFs. We already have ours. Again, BlackRock and Fidelity, those two by themselves. Those are not all the spot Bitcoin ETFs, but those two by themselves have somewhere between 18 to $20 trillion under assets. That's trillion with a T. And that does not, so they have the spot Bitcoin ETFs. There's all that potential money that could flow in. And then you also have the spot Ether ETFs, which could potentially be approved next month. So that's the reason why the Bitcoin halving matters. Now let's talk about the after effects of why this is so significant. So we're going to first take a brief look at Bitcoin. We're going to start with Bitcoin, then we're going to get into some of the other major metrics, and then we're going to talk about the alts and Grayscale. So again, well, actually, before I get into that, I want to show you guys this. So we do have our portfolios here. Okay, they are going up pretty quickly, actually. So as you guys can see, it's kind of really the halving event. There is a markup phase after the halving event. Generally speaking, that does happen. But we want to show you guys in real time how dedicated to this space we actually are, so you guys don't think we're just here for today and gone tomorrow kind of thing. That's not what this is. So we're going to go back a little bit in time here. If this thing actually wants to work, I don't know what's taking so long. Sorry about that. So just to show you guys some kind of random transactions, we were actually buying Bitcoin before Bitcoin, as you guys can see here, August, back in 2022. This was before Bitcoin even hit its bottom during the bear market cycle. So you have, of course, well, this is 2024, so that's more recently, but as you guys can see, a lot of transactions going back into 2022. So we'll go over to something like Dogecoin, which of course is the king meme coin. And just so y'all know, if Elon Musk does ever approve Dogecoin for payments on X, which again, we do have an account on X. So just so y'all know, if he ever approves that, that's going to be extremely bullish for both Doge and meme coins. Really looking forward to that. But as you guys can see, we had been buying Doge back in 2022, which was why it was so easy for us to make profits now. So again, I want to reiterate that, the earlier you get into crypto in the bull market cycle, the better off you're going to be. Generally speaking, that's not a guarantee, but that's been our experience since we got in. So we got in and starting in 2022 at the bear market lows, and even before then, we were kind of just sitting on the sidelines for about 6 months. Once Bitcoin topped out, once it looked like it was going to top out, we were looking at the markets, at the charts, and saying, okay, it's time to get out. So we got out. We sold literally everything we had, sat on cash for basically 6 months, and waited for the market to drop towards an indicator that we'll talk about at some point in the future. We're not going to talk about it now, but we waited for that point, and then we started striking in terms of buying crypto. So you can see we were even buying Litecoin back here during that same time frame that we were buying Bitcoin. We also did buy some Ethereum too, so that just goes to show how dedicated to the space we are. Just so y'all know, so this is the total amount of money that we currently have in crypto. It is a lot. You guys probably think we're nuts, or some people do. That's fine. I mean, to each their own. Perspective is what it is. We know that there are some people out there like, Ethan. He's, obviously a multimillionaire. He's very wealthy, and he puts his money where his mouth is, and he's very rich as a result because he invests in crypto. I mean, guys, crypto is an asymmetrical bet if you know how to play it right. So, I mean, just looking at this, if all we got was a 15x, as you guys can see, the move would be absolutely huge here. If we get even, say, I don't know, even a 10x, I mean, you guys can see how much we would get out of this. So do something really, really stupid here and say we get a 25x. Obviously, the numbers would be absolutely insane. Again, crypto is very risky. You got to understand this. You get out of it what you put into it. If you put a little bit in, you're going to get a little bit out. If you put a lot in, you're going to get a lot out. But then again, whether you get something out of it or not kind of depends on when you get in. So as of right now, as of the day after the halving, I would say the train is leaving the station for crypto. Whether you guys choose to get in at this point or not, it's entirely up to you. But if history is any indication, the crypto bull market is about to start to get crazy, and prices are going to rip pretty high, and the opportunities are going to slip through people's fingers, and they're not going to know what they're going to want to buy at the top, and then that's just obviously a bad idea. So it's up to you guys what you want to do with your money, but now is the most ideal time, in my opinion, to start loading the boat on altcoins and the Grayscale trusts, or maybe even Bitcoin and Ethereum if you want to be a little more conservative. So let's take a look at Bitcoin and see what happened the last time that Bitcoin's halving happened. And we can go back through history on all of these, but I'm not going to do that in this video. So, because if I do, this video will take forever. So let's take a look at the last halving. As you guys can see, April 2024. So we're going to go look at that. And I did tell you guys we were going to look at the major metrics first, so we will. So this vertical line here is the halving event. As you guys can see, We had a little bit of a markup phase, but overall we kind of just chopped sideways. And then in July, boom, popped up, pulled back a little bit, and then boom, really started taking off towards the end of the year of the halving year, which I do suspect is still going to happen. So if the Bitcoin bull cycle is to remain true and we don't see the parabolic moves until the end of the year, basically you guys have roughly about, I would say, anywhere from 3 to about 8 months left to be able to accumulate. Whether you choose to do so, how much you choose to do so, that's entirely up to you. Remember, risk management is important. These assets are risky. They can go up thousands of percent, but they can also go down in a bear market 80, 90%. And in some of these pullbacks, even Bitcoin itself, not including altcoins, can go down 30, 40, 50% pullbacks in a bull market and still keep going up before we have the bear market. So point in case, having happened, a little bit of a markup, chop sideways, more of a markup, more sideways and down, and then boom, towards the end of the year, we popped off. So let's take a look at a few of these other metrics. So we're actually going to start with the, no, we're not going to start with this. So we'll start with the total 1, and then we'll go down to total 3. So again, the Bitcoin halving happened right around this time frame. As you guys can see, this is the total crypto market cap. So this is all cryptocurrencies. This is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and every single altcoin out there in existence. So the market cap at that time was a measly 238 billion. Again, Bitcoin's market cap is like over $1 trillion at this point. I think it's even bigger than that. So this is only a fourth, the whole entire crypto space, only a fourth of what Bitcoin itself is currently worth. Okay. So that happened. And then as you guys can see, we pretty much just went up, pretty much nothing but up, a little sideways, a little bit of sideways, but pretty much mostly up after that point. So from that 230 billion to the first peak that we had here at about 2.56 trillion, the entire crypto space as a whole did over a 10x. Then we had a pullback and then we went back to the upside. So from the bottom to the top, we did, I think, like roughly about a 12, 13x somewhere in there for the overall space. And then this was the mid-cycle dump here, as you guys can see. But even from that point, from the low of 1.15 trillion up to 3 trillion, I mean, you're talking nearly a 3x. So what am I saying by showing you guys this? Well, basically, this indicates that after the halving, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all of the altcoins are going to go up massively in value. Okay, there is a possibility that this crypto market cap could top out somewhere between, I'd say, maybe 8 to 12 trillion. I would say probably closer to about 10 to 12 trillion is realistically probably what we're going to see for total 1. So now we're going to talk about total 3. This relates specifically to Grayscale and the altcoins because, again, a lot of the Grayscale trusts are based on altcoins. The only exceptions here would be ETH and GBTC or whatever the new version is, and the altcoin space. So your things like LTCN BCHG, GXLM, GSOL, all of those are all based on altcoins. So total 3 is basically the entire altcoin space, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, as you guys can see up here. So the total 3 right here at the bottom was only about $60 billion. Okay. And I mean, again, that's a lot of money, but for where the valuations ended up going in the future, it was really nothing. I mean, you guys would have been looking at this thinking, damn, this was cheap. I wish I had got in. So as you guys can see, mostly up, but we did have some kind of sideways chop here. This range was actually pretty long. It was about 3-4 months. So once again, around the time of the halving, 60 billion. But if we take a look at where this thing peaked out, the total altcoin market cap, not including Bitcoin and Ethereum, went to almost $1 trillion. Okay. So from 60 billion to 900 billion by itself is a 15x. That's on the entire altcoin space. That does not include any specific altcoin. That's just altcoins in general. The entire space did a nearly 15x. Okay. And that includes new altcoins, legacy altcoins, meme coins, AI coins, metaverse coins, you name it. L1 solutions, whatever was hot back at that time. So once we got the dump here, it went from 443 billion to 1.13 trillion. So even on the second peak, we did nearly a 3x. But if we calculate, I mean, this thing, it topped out at basically about 1.2 trillion. So simple math, we'll say 1.2 trillion divided by 60 billion. You're talking about a 20x from basically from the time of the halving until the peak here. So maybe like an 18, 19x overall, but that's just across the board for all altcoins. That's not any specific altcoins. Some altcoins did like a 2x, some did like a 10, 20, 50x. And then you had your rare, super mega bullish ones that did like a 500 to 1000x. So again, one more major metric we need to see in the Bitcoin dominance. We need to see a drop off of the dominance. We have not seen that yet. Still just kind of chopping around. It does actually look like BTC dominance is still in play. We are not, if the previous cycles is to remain true, we're not going to see a fall in the dominance until Bitcoin has a true top. Okay. We'll go over that in a minute before we get into the altcoins and the grayscale trusts. But again, we need to see something like this. So Bitcoin dominates moonshots, then it falls off a cliff, starts breaking some of these trend lines, breaks the EMAs, breaks the zones that it's in, and then boom, as soon as you see this waterfall moment, you already know that Bitcoin, or I should say the profits from Bitcoin, is starting to roll into the alts. I do think that LTCN and BCHG will top out the same time as Bitcoin, but a lot of these grayscale trusts might top out later, because they're not oscillators to Bitcoin, and a lot of the altcoins will probably also top out later in the cycle, which is why we're looking at this. So now we're going to go back here to Bitcoin, and I'm actually going to show you guys some pretty crazy numbers here. This is going to be hard to actually see. So basically, we're doing Fibonacci retracements from cycle lows to cycle highs here. As you guys can see, why does this matter? Because it gives us an idea of where Bitcoin could potentially go. So any of these targets could be possible. Okay, so you have about 97K. This is not perfectly accurate, but it's going to be somewhere in this range. 150K, about 200K and 230K or so. I would say 150,000 to 200,000 is more than realistic. Again, Bitcoin did a 23x from the lows the previous cycle to the highs. So from about 3K to 69K, that's about a 23x. And from the cycle low, assuming that it just gets, let's say, to 160,000, so 16,000 to 160,000, that's a 10x. That's basically 50% the move of the last cycle. But again, it could do more than that. I mean, anything less than a 23x would still be considered diminishing returns. If it did a 20x, which is still less than a 23x, but it's huge, it could go from 16 to 320,000. All right, so that covers Bitcoin. Now let's get into we're going to do just a couple of the trusts, but then we're going to look at some altcoins. So again, if LTCN goes from where it is right now to $510, which was the previous cycle, the move on that one is going to be epic. So we're going to figure out what that is right now. So 510 divided by 36. Again, it's about a 14x. That's pretty much about what the average was of the entire altcoin space last cycle. However, if you had bought and held from the bottom, okay, which I believe was $2 if I'm not mistaken. So if it just gets back to the all-time highs and does not go any higher, and this is probably, I would say, the most bearish case scenario, most conservative scenario, if you bought in at $2 and you held to the top, you'd be looking at a 255x. So absolutely huge gains. Again, same thing with BCHG. We can do simple math on this. So the current price is $14. The top is $60. You'd be looking at a 4x. But if you had bought somewhere down in here, let's just say you bought, I don't know, we'll do simple math here. Say you bought at $1 and you sold at 60, even though the bottom was 41 cents. You'd be looking at basically about a 60x. However, if you did manage to get it at 41 cents, which good job on timing the bottom because that's impossible to do, it'd be about 146x move just to get back to the highs. So we're going to show you now like some of the other moves that happen in some of the altcoins and also Ethereum. So as you guys can see here on the chart, once again, the Bitcoin halving took place roughly around April timeframe. So that's right around in here. Ethereum looks like about a couple $100. And you guys can basically look right and see the chart. And, easy math here. You can see it pretty much went up. Ethereum's absolute all-time high was about $4,900. So you're talking, I don't know exactly off the top of my head what that is. It's a lot. So say 4,900 divided by 200. This basically a 25x, and that's on Ethereum. That's not even another altcoin. We can take a look at some of these others and look at those. So some of these are going to be a little bit late movers. Some of them are going to be early. It just kind of depends. But this thing is so small, you almost can't even see it. So again, as you guys can see, Doge just basically did nothing for the longest time. So for pretty much until Bitcoin hit its all-time highs, it did absolutely nothing. So about 8 months of accumulation here. Once again, the bottom of this area was roughly about, I'll be conservative here and say about 0.2 of a penny. Once the end of the halving year came around and the first quarter of the following year came around, you guys can see that the moves up were just absolutely ridiculous. So it topped out at about 76 cents. We'll do the math on that. So we'll say 76 cents divided by 0.002, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's about a 380x. So yeah, if you put $1,000 in, I mean, you would have made like what, $380,000. So again, this is a rare instance. This is not common in crypto, but just understand that that can happen. So we take a look at something like Compound. This is kind of an older coin. As you guys can see, it kind of was up and down, didn't really do much. I think it did go up a little bit for DeFi summer during that year, but so after the halving, it kind of more or less just pretty much went down, but from the bottom at about $80 to the top at $900, as you guys can see, it did about a 10-11x. One that we're actually invested quite a bit into that we think is going to have a great bull run this year. And again, it's based on that DPIN narrative for the storage space. If you guys don't know what DPIN is, DEPIN, go look it up. You'll see what I'm talking about. So as you guys can see here, Filecoin was pretty much where we hit this bear market low, so about $3-4. I'll move over to the right of the chart so you guys can see this. But yeah, so basically this thing at around the time of the halving was valued at about $4. And even before the Bitcoin bull run started taking off, you guys can see just how much this went up. We'll just ignore this wick here, and you guys can see it still went up like nearly a 10x even before Bitcoin started pushing to all-time highs. But by the time this thing topped out, it was at $238. So again, we'll do 238 divided by 4. You'd be looking at nearly a 60x on this coin. And as you guys can see, I got to scroll over quite a bit to actually get to this. So as you guys can see, December 2022 lows was actually a little bit lower than the previous low, about 240. And we had a higher low here, 270, another higher low where it based out kind of at $3. And then ever since then, we've been moving up. We do have quite a bit of this. Our cost basis, I think, is like $9 or something like that. But it just gives you guys an example of some of these altcoins, what the altcoin space is going to do, what Bitcoin's going to do, what the total market cap of crypto will do, what the Grayscale Trust will do. And again, how risky or how conservative you want to go about this is your choice. But again, this is to illustrate the grand point here that the Bitcoin halving has taken place. And generally speaking, throughout time, every time this event's happened, 6 to 8 months later, Bitcoin hits new all-time highs. Some of the altcoins hit new all-time highs, and then altcoins start popping off after that into the following year, and they could top out anytime during the year. It's just something that you guys will have to keep a lookout on. If you guys are wondering good websites you can go check that data out on to kind of follow the coins you want to look at. Two of those sites that we look at is CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko.com. So go ahead and check those out. But anyways, this is the Bitcoin halving. Hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.